Pirate Nation, we're going to keep this week's episode of Hoist the Colors nice and brief. Why? Because simply put, and Pat and I agreed on this in the days leading up to us recording this episode, we just don't have the energy for this to do it at the level that we know we're capable of. But I think it boils down to a lot of what happened. It's a trickle down effect of what happened Saturday and the discourse that has followed since. As you know, Seton Hall Pirates were beat by 0-8 Monmouth by double digits at the Rock on Saturday after coming off a rather successful trip to Charleston, where they went 2-1 and finished in third place at the Charleston Classic. Anyways, I'm Tim Best. He's Pat Madden. Pat, what the hell changed between? It was like we saw a complete reversion. It was like it wasn't the team that went to Charleston and went 2-1. It looked like the team that started 2-2 and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn and just let inferior teams, with the exception of Wagner, outplay them.
Well, the one thing Seton Hall cannot afford to do and expect to win games is play with half an effort. And sitting there Saturday afternoon, it just didn't look like they had the will to put an effort out there. Now, one of the more hustle guys who nobody really likes, but you can't say he doesn't bring it on the court, is Dylan Adewusu, who unfortunately was fighting the flu most of the week and wasn't physically ready to go Saturday afternoon, which also led to some difficulties with Seton Hall's offense functioning. I mean, when you see two shot clock violations against a Monmouth team that doesn't play particularly good offense, and even Shaheen Holloway said at the end of the game, we practiced against a zone offense, zone defense. We knew what we would practice what we were going to do about it. Yet they couldn't find a way to execute on Saturday afternoon. I would say maybe three guys brought it on Saturday, and everyone else included was half asleep. Uh, Isaiah Coleman had a big game, had his second, I think he had his second 20-point effort of the season in a losing effort. Uh, you can't fault Chauncey Jenkins. He went 4 for 12. He had 12 points, but at least Chauncey Jenkins he got put in a difficult situation of trying to guard Abdul Bashir, who looked like the guy who scored 38 points against Rutgers in the first half, putting up 18 to give Monmouth a 2-point lead. And then the third guy is Emmanuel Okorafor. At least Okorafor is banging the boards. At least Okorafor is trying to make things happen inside. Okorafor couldn't hit a foul shot, but hey, he's wearing a Seton Hall uniform. I think that goes with the territory when you're wearing a Seton Hall uniform that you can't hit foul shots. So in that sense, everyone else just looked like they were sleepwalking. If a Shaheen Holloway team can't bring an effort, then what are we doing here?
You're exactly right. And like the thing is, like Shaheen Holloway led teams, they pride themselves on always bringing it every single night and making their opponent's life a living hell on the defensive end. Granted, they forced 14 turnovers, which like that's what they need to do in order to put themselves in a winning position. However, outside of that, they let Bashir go off for 28 points, 11 of 19 from the floor and 6 of 9 from three. If Dylan Adewusu plays, I think he may have had like half of that. I mean, my guess is 14, but somewhere I would say he would have not scored 20 plus if Adewusu was the primary defensive assignment had he played. They went 10 of 21 from long range. They also were +6 on the glass, 46% overall from the floor, 7 of 10 from the free throw line. And again, Seton Hall, 50%, 8 for 16. That And the shooting numbers weren't that much better. Right around 36% as a team. And from 3-point range, just 5 for 21. They took the same number of 3-point attempts and they made a half of what the Hawks made. Um, I just for the hell of it, I looked up what the free throw percentage is. They're shooting 59% from the free throw line as a team. I want to throw up. That is egregiously bad. I mean, you have Yassine Toomey 40%. Adewusu is 50%. Prince of League Base 57%. And then you have a bunch of other guys who are like Dual, Arierne, Yalden, and Okorafor. Probably smaller sample sizes, but still, all four of those guys are still shooting under 50% from the foul line. That is just, I don't even know. Like my disgust, I don't know if it can be as high as it is right now. And you look at, I mean, what do you do with this team? I mean, Aligbe and Arierne were two of your starters. Each of them only played 10 minutes. To me, played 23 minutes. Scotty Middleton played 21 minutes. I thought Middleton played well. I mean, 2 turnovers didn't really help. But to me, I mean, he did go 4 for 6 from the free throw line, so he got improvement. But from the floor, 0 for 6 from the floor and 0 for 2 from long range. Yeah, it was just, I don't even, I feel like, I feel like if I really said how I feel, even though this is YouTube, I would still own a fine to the FCC because I don't, I mean, I'm really mincing my words here, but that's the gist of how I viewed their performance on Saturday, which was just an extreme disappointment on almost all levels.
Well, I'll make one more quick point, and then we'll move on to something else. You know, again, it's one we know the offense is gonna be mediocre at best and bad at worst. We know that. We know this team has significant offensive challenges. I don't know how many of these guys can actually shoot a basketball. Uh, that's a different story for a different day. You have to come with the team that you're playing with, and unless you can miraculously teach people how to shoot a basketball when you get some of your longer breaks coming up later in December, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. There is something you can do about making so many defensive lapses and leaving so many open 3-point shots and letting a team like Monmouth get so many offensive rebounds. That's all effort stuff. And again, as I said before, a Shaheen Holloway team that does bring effort really has little hope of winning because that's basically the Shaheen Holloway philosophy of winning is that you bring 40 minutes of effort every night. And if you can't do that, that's what are you hoping for?
I mean, literally, I mean, you think about two of the three, all that's applicable to all three of the three Ds. Desire, especially, dedication, and discipline, but more so, especially desire. Like, if you don't have that desire, that's going to show on the court. Like, I mean, look at the effort getting out rebounded and especially giving them second chance opportunities. Like, that all boils down to desire. I feel like that's the simplest way of putting it and the correct way of putting it. If anyone wants to challenge me on that in our comments, in the comment section of the video, so be it. Hell, even add us on Twitter. I don't care. I'm willing to come with the receipts. That's fine by me. But I mean, like you said, if a Shaheen Holloway led team is failing to live up to that standard, yeah, they're gonna be in big trouble. Like because they might bring more of an effort against more quality teams, like we're gonna see, like they're playing Oklahoma State Sunday, and they go on the road to play Rutgers on the 14th. That's another thing too. I'm gonna go off a bit of a tangent here, and then we'll bring it back. They can't be selectively, you know, they can't make selective efforts. Like they can't go into Jersey Mike's Arena and just wake up and bring it because it's Rutgers. No. That's not how this works. I'm not saying you got to go in with the same intensity against Rutgers like you do against Monmouth, but come with a little juice. Monmouth's 0-8, but any team can win on any given night. And Shaheen Holloway can speak to that given how his Peacocks, as a 15 seed, went to the Elite Eight just 2 years ago. So that's I feel like I'm out of breath going on. Even the small rants I'm out of breath on. But we digress. Um, but to kind of like tie things in more, I mean, obviously, the disgruntlement amongst fans is at an all-time high, and I feel like there were a lot of things that were brought to the forefront by a host of people. Um, but the one thing, you and I talked about this beforehand, but I'm just going to address this right here and now. Given that I'm a former Bluebeard Army president, running the student section, back in my heyday, I will not have, I won't be afraid to admit that I probably peaked in college back during those days. But um, yeah, to see that the student section, the row in front of them, which is now the real front row, is not going to students. It's going to the most affluent people, the people who are gonna shell out the money and pour the money into the ticket office, and if they're going, if it goes to the NIL fund or wherever it goes. Seton Hall University Athletics is benefiting from that and profiting off of that, and that's a I would love to know how much that costs. I would assume like it's got to be some kind of bag. I would say like if it's somewhere in the 200 to 300 range. I don't know the exacts, but that's my ballpark. I mean, I could probably look this up, and anyone can correct me on that. But the fact that if this happened when I was there, and I saw all these rich people, donors sitting in the front row, like, okay, if you want to sit here, you better not be sitting. You better stand up and you better be involved. I don't want to see you sitting on your phone during the game and just not being involved. Like the only time that me and the Psy Mafia sat down was halftime. We were standing all 40 minutes of the game. The student section is the most important aspect of college basketball in terms of creating a hostile environment. Don't listen, I hate Duke. But their student section at Cameron Indoor plays a big role into them having the great home court advantage that they have had for almost a half a century now, maybe even longer. Who knows? But they don't have the rich donors sitting right in front of the Cameron Crazies. Yet it's happening here at Seton Hall. And that is a major, major fundamental problem. Like, again, if these people want to, shell out the money, like, listen, don't be coming here expecting to just sit down and just be antisocial and just like sit there and just watch the game nonchalant, la 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 la. I don't even care if it's against Monmouth or St. Peter's or any other inferior opponent. Don't come in here with that weak stuff, okay? If you're going to sit there, you better be alive. You better be making some noise and getting into it. Like the people who are sitting like opposite the scores table, trust me, I've seen those people. They are active. The people that I've seen sitting front row right in front of the student section, the first two games I've seen at the Rock this year against St. Peter's and Monmouth, you might as well have had those had you might as well have had my grandmother sitting in the front. My grandmother, sitting from my mom's side on the front row, and she's dead. You might as well have done that because there was nothing there. Like that's just, oh my God. I'm gonna make my blood boil, and I'm already in disarray enough as it is because I think I probably had something bad for lunch today. The chicken and the chicken Caesar salad might have expired, but okay, I got that out of my system. Pat, you got anything?
Just my last point would be, I wanted to be. I might still get excited about seeing NJIT on Wednesday. Grant Billemeyer's in the house. First time as a head coach, he's playing Seton Hall in a game that counts. They've got a point guard, Tariq Francis, who is one of the more exciting players in the New York area. Uh, a guy who I'd love to, at a tampering aside, he's the type of point guard that Seton Hall should have right now. Good shooter, quick, runs an offense well. Uh, a guy who, if you need a basket, can get you a basket. I think NJIT is going to be one of the more improved teams in the American East Conference this season. So, at that sense, I'll be interested to see what they bring against Seton Hall. I mean, hopefully, on Seton Hall's end, they don't take NJIT lightly and say, all right, you know what, you're an American East team. We should beat you just by stepping on the court. But if they've learned anything this season, they have to have learned they don't have enough offensively to just get on the court and beat anyone. You've got to make a full effort. Hopefully, if Wusu is back, we know there'll be more intensity on the defensive side. As for Oklahoma State, again, you mentioned it's weird how up they got for the games in Charleston against VCU and Florida Atlantic. So maybe because they're playing a Big 12 team, they'll make more of an effort on Saturday on Sunday afternoon. Oklahoma State's off to a little bit better start than people expected. They have a new coach. They got rid of Mike Boykin, who was terrible. They've managed to do some things really well early in the season. I don't think they're. We talked a little bit, I think, last week about where Oklahoma State's going to end up in the Big 12. The Big 12 is just a powerhouse. The whole battle this week is just going to be interesting to see which Big East teams can compete against Big 12 teams against some of those matchups. Butler's playing well, but do you expect them to beat Houston? I don't think so. People think Georgetown's doing better, but they've got to play a really good West Virginia team. And then you get the matchups like BYU Providence, Cincinnati Villanova. I mean, the Big East could get beat up bad this weekend. This week. So, we'll see what happens if Seton Hall, takes it. Because again, everyone else after Wednesday night is a power conference opponent. Oklahoma State from the Big 12, Rutgers from the Big 10, and then you get the 20 Big East games after that. So maybe these guys do get up. Maybe people like Middleton and Dool and Yalden and Toomey just have not decided to get their game. I shouldn't say that about Gus Yalden. Gus Yalden brings an effort every night. It's unfortunate that he's got a lot of work to do in his game, but I shouldn't say he wasn't bringing something. It's
Right.
just because he's so new and because he's got some physical limitations, but he still brings an effort. He just maybe is not quite ready to be a Big East center yet, and that's no knock on Yalden because this was his 8th college game Saturday afternoon, and I think that he's going to work hard on his game, and he'll be a better product later in the season and going forward. So I'm not worried about Gus Yalden. I'm worried about some of the other guys who should have been excited to take a step up this season because they've been put down so bad, like Dool and Middleton. And we really haven't seen the best. We've seen flashes, but we haven't seen the best of them. And we need to see better from those two guys in particular if Seton Hall's not going to embarrass themselves and lose less than 10 games this whole season.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the Big East, Big 12 battle. Yeah, that could get ugly. Like, Villanova's not beating Cincinnati. Let's be real with each other. I don't see Providence unless Bryce Hopkins is back. I don't think they're going to be BYU. Um, who knows, that amp home court advantage and the PCBC, seeing them in person coming alive like that, maybe that'll change things and make it a tough place to play. I don't know. Baylor UConn is now more of a toss up than I was anticipating. Marquette Iowa State is going to be a fantastic game, by the way. Creighton ain't beating Kansas. It'll be so funny if DePaul goes into Lubbock and beats Texas Tech. I don't know. I'm rooting for that because it's a lot more fun when DePaul's doing well because DePaul Twitter, as everyone knows, it's just unrivaled. Not like Providence Twitter, they're great, but DePaul Twitter is just chaotic evil. No, chaotic good. They're chaotic good.
Rank the Pauls a reality if they beat Texas Tech on what Thursday. I think it's what is that
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Rank the Pauls a reality if they win on Wednesday, by the way.
They got a vote. I think they got a vote in the poll this week. So
Rank the
good for
Pauls a
them.
reality if they win at Texas Tech. That
And
will happen.
yeah, I mean, other than that, like Xavier they should beat TCU in Fort Worth. West Virginia against Georgetown, like Georgetown, the competition level, they're not beating West Virginia. St. John's, first, RIP Louis Carnesecca. Condolences to his family and all of St. John's. Even though like we may beef, on the court and we beefed in the offseason regarding Kadari. That's such a hard loss, and my condolences, to Louis' family. Legend gone in '99. He was going to turn 100 in a month from now. So that sucks. It really
It's like
sucks.
Betty White all over again.
Yeah, yes, yeah, just like Betty White. Like that, I mean, that really is sad. And then yeah, Butler, they've been playing well. I just don't see him beating Houston. And then with Oklahoma State, you would hope that the Pirates will get up for that one. But, it takes a lot more than just waking up ready to play to beat a Big 12 caliber opponent. They sure they might bring it, but it takes a lot more than that because Oklahoma State, they'll bring it too, and they could argue they have a lot more offensive firepower, and I'm putting that lightly. Um, and the one thing that I can find solace in right now, despite just easily this is rock bottom at this point. I'm hoping that this is rock bottom and can't get any worse than this. The one thing I can find solace in, I hope that everyone watching this as a Seton Hall fan can do the same. I can find solace in the fact that a lot of other teams are in the same boat as us. Maybe not the same exact situation where they've lost bye games to Fordham and Monmouth, but look at Villanova, who is 500 at 4-4. You look at um, even UConn, like they've a cataclysmic drop. From number two, they go 0-3 in Maui. Now they're holding on by by a thread to being still having a number next to their name, being ranked 25th now in the country. Creighton's going through some struggles. Um, and then Providence went 0-3 down at the Battle for Atlantis. So I can find some solace in that. That's honestly that'll be the only thing that'll help me sleep at night. Until hopefully things will turn around and they fingers crossed and knock on wood, they take care of business against NJIT and maybe they, stun a lot of people by beating Oklahoma State. And I'm not gonna push an agenda saying they're gonna go into Jersey Mike's Arena and beat Rutgers. I am not doing that, and I'm not gonna allow myself to get set up for like, oh, you suggested they could beat Rutgers, and then God forbid we get what happened 5 years ago where Rutgers ran us out of the building when Miles Powell got arguably the nastiest concussion known to man. Given how the story of how confused he was wearing the black jersey, like, yo, why are we practicing at Rutgers? That's still one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. I'm sidetracking here, and I think bringing up horrible, traumatic things from the past ain't gonna make things better. But Pirates fans, for now, and I know that I'm contradicting myself by saying this. Everyone, just take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. I should be a yogi one of these days. Actually, no, I'd be the world's worst yogi if I do that because I am
I mean,
the least
I
chill.
want to I want to make one more last point.
Sure.
I sit next to a guy in my season. I got season tickets this year. I sit next to a guy named Joe, who is class of '83. He has seen worse than this. You look at some of those early PJ Carlissimo teams, they were bad. There were seasons when Seton Hall couldn't win 6, 7 games and I think they went 1-15 in the Big East in like 1984, 85. So this was right when Mark Bryant was coming into Seton Hall. So we've lived through bad. We lived through George Blaney. We lived through some of the bad Bobby Gonzalez years. So we've seen bad before. And, don't let the fact that, there are a lot of good Seton Hall fans out there who are not fair weather fans. They'll get through seeing a bad season, like this. A lot of people just shouldn't give up hope. I know people who tweet about it, people who, there's a chat room that Timmy and I are in with, we have complaints and people have theories about this type of stuff. And Tim and I will bring some of these things in the light later in the season if things don't turn around. I mean, Timmy mentioned the one issue about the front row. There are 20 issues off the court that may or may not be the reason why Seton Hall is not doing what we've been accustomed to them doing over the past 10 years and through the heights of the PJ Colissimo era. And we'll talk about some of that stuff in the second half of the season if need be, because Tim and I talked before and we're like, you know what? Are we going to talk about Seton Hall getting beat by 20 points by UConn and Marquette when we get to February? Probably the same when we talked about this Monmouth game. We'll talk about it. We'll say why we lost. We'll move on. And then we'll talk about some of the bigger issues that are sort of bubbling under the surface that, come up when somebody sends long Twitter feeds, and they're appreciated, by the way. And and we want them to be better, and maybe we'll come up with some things that solutions, which at least will make people feel better about the losing, even if it doesn't turn the losing around. So, that would just be my last point. Is don't give don't give up on Seton Hall in general. Yeah, this season looks like it could be tough to get through. We've gotten through tougher before. So, and we will win I think we will win some Big East games. I don't want to put a number on it. I know I had a number on it at the beginning of the season. Obviously, you have to ratchet that number a lot lower given what we've seen so far. But, as Tim said, we're not the only Big East team that is sinking towards the bottom right now. So we'll see what happens when conference play starts later in December.
So actually, no, I just remembered something that regarding the whole front row thing. Apparently, the cheerleaders have to be behind them. Like, what are we doing there? Like, if you're putting the cheerleaders behind them, like, if you want to spite the students, okay. But the cheerleaders, like, come on, man. Like that's just fundamentally wrong. But and the last thing I want to end with, because I was actually in contact with one of our Blue Sox players from the summer, who one of our three Monmouth Hawks on the team. All right, all right, laugh it up, Brendan Bucher. Laugh it up, Wyatt Hunt, and laugh it up, Nick Hios. You got one on us, and I just got to sit there and take it like a man. Your Monmouth Hawks beat my Seton Hall Pirates, and I just have to swallow that and accept it. It sucks, but I actually messaged Brendan earlier today because we actually have a good rapport where we would actually like go back and forth and like quiz each other on like college team nicknames. So I had to message Buke and say, okay, you got one over on us. Enjoy it while you can. Because just know I am in Spain, but without the S. So I just want to give a shout out to Brendan, Wyatt, and Nick down in West Long Branch. Hope you're doing well. Best of luck in the spring with the Hawks. So that is going to conclude this episode of Hoist the Colors. Hopefully, it'll be a little more upbeat when we come back next week, following their games against NJIT and Oklahoma State. I think we're going to try to preview the Rutgers game. I'm going to bring on a guy maybe like an Adam Zalanka who has seen both of these teams up close. He was on our show last year, and I believe previewed not only the Rutgers game, but also the game against Baylor right before that. So we'll keep you in the loop, and we'll definitely make sure to have a guest on to preview the Garden State Hardwood Classic, which would be the 10th edition with the trophy now on the line. So for Pat Madden, I'm Tim Best. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, onward, Setonia. Take care.